Nick Hours, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Not too bad. About yourself, Mike?
Doing great. Could you just start by introducing yourself just very briefly because we're going to dive deep into who you are and things you like and whatnot?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name's Nick Hours. I'm a senior pen tester, currently employed at a company called Sprocket Security. I've been a pen tester for, I say 8 years, and I had about a 2 year run in with defensive security and 8 years of like general IT work, we'll call it as well.
Very cool. I'm curious so the defense was before you went full offense, is that right?
Yeah. I had an interest in the offense, but there was a defensive need at a local startup, and I thought
Okay.
this is as good of a foot in the door as I'm going to get, so took it, and it was like SIM and EDR kind of stuff.
That makes sense. Yep. You just try to find your way to your ultimate goal, however you can get there.
Yep, typical hacker stuff, right?
Exactly. Cool. Well, let's get started with the series of questions. So the first question is, when did you first start your interest in computers?
Boy, so probably the 90s. My dad actually had actual floppy disks, right, to put into a computer that I couldn't even tell you much about because I was so young, to play like Chess Master or something like that. And I thought that was pretty cool, just the concept of home computing. The printer still had the perforated edges
Yeah,
on the paper and the huge reams. Yep. So I mean, I think that's probably my first experience working with a computer, touching a computer. I think that stuck with me into my teenage years. My dad was like, he worked with his hands a lot, but in his spare time, he definitely always poked with computers. And
nice.
so he would
As
fix
a
a lot of
hobby?
people. Yeah, realistically, a hobby. And yeah, I think just curiosity.
Very
Oh,
cool.
yep. And so, yeah, he started fixing computers for neighbors and friends and family. And that's definitely where I started too.
So he was the local nerd basically to fix everybody's computers and
Yeah, it starts as a blessing and ends as a curse, I would say.
yeah,
The
that's true.
fi-
Yeah, every family reunion, right? Somebody has
Yep.
a computer problem.
Yeah. Nowadays it's the cell phones too. So holy
Yeah,
smokes.
that's cool though still. Cool. Well, the next question is when did you first get your interest in cybersecurity?
Yeah, that was definitely 2004, 2005. I would say Backtrack was still the predominant like hacking OS at the time. So,
Backtrack 3.
yeah, I was
Was
just
there
starting to go
was
ahead.
there a 1 and a 2 or did they start with 3?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question actually.
Because I only remember Backtrack 3 before it became Kali. I don't
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
1 and a 2.
No, I don't either. I don't either. And I remember getting my hands on it, and the easiest thing to, as a curious, I guess, teenager in my 20s. Well, how old was I at that point? I don't know. It's a good question. I forgot. But I wanted to run aircrack and capture Wi-Fi, handshakes, and that sort of stuff. And it got me further than I thought I was going to get the first couple times that I opened up, the operating system, and it helped that I had that formal IT knowledge because like figuring out the virtualization side, like, oh, how do I spin up a VM and all that was pretty native to my knowledge already. So I just kind of started filling in the security gaps, like what do I see at work that in theory could be abused, and how can I go home or use my work experiences to kind of learn more about that stuff.
What did you use to learn?
Well, I would say VulnHub, which was pretty much the only hack the box like thing at the time. And
Is
again,
it still
downloading.
around?
I think so much of their material got like implemented into like OffSec stuff and into just different trainings all over the web. I don't know if they, as a standalone, are still around. That's a good question.
Yeah, I haven't heard that name in a while. I'll have to find out after this.
Yeah. But I know I was one of the first couple thousand users on Hack the Box. They only had a .edu, or not edu, I'm sorry, a .eu at that point. So it was still like this kind of mysterious thing. You had to hack yourself an invite. I remember like you couldn't just sign up. And so that was all while I was kind of working as like an IT admin or a network admin. And at the same time, I was trying to take what I was learning and apply it as ethically as I could to my IT role, like, oh, there's this unused desktop. Can I get like a interpreter shell on it or something like that? So a little bit of lab and a little bit of playing safely in production, we'll call it.
Nice. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
That's a great opportunity to learn in a live environment.
Yeah, yeah, and I was a contractor, so I was exposed to a lot of different types of environments. I think that helped too. And some of those environments were like, oh, we fired the IT contractor. You guys are the new IT contractor. We don't have any documentation. So even before the knowledge, that I have now in terms of hacking into stuff, it was very much like, how do we get into the system that the old
You have
IT
to
people left?
learn quick. Yeah,
So,
you have to
yep,
figure out stuff quick, right?
100%. Yeah, so I think that played a part too.
Nice. Cool. Well, let's move on to the next question. This one is a fun one. The coolest or one of the coolest hack you've ever pulled off, without naming any specific client, but
Sure,
just the
sure.
story.
Oh man, so many years of doing fun things in this space. I'll say one that was pretty cool. So this was for a county. I can't say which county, obviously, but a county. And their environment had all sorts of things like you would imagine a county would, including like police station and some prison systems were even hooked up in there and colleges and all sorts of stuff. And we were tasked with trying to really target like the law enforcement and prison side of like find anything you can, but that's kind of the focus if you can. Okay. And we came across a pretty well secured application on the internal network that was like a prison management system, which
Oh,
I
which
guess
one?
it's called Black Creek, I think.
But what is it for? Present?
Oh,
Is that what?
prison management,
Oh,
like
prison
jail.
management. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The application itself, I couldn't really get where I wanted to go with it. So I figured this is on an underlying, Windows server. It was running on a Windows server, so I kind of took the more traditional network approach and looked for some network credentials and got onto that Windows server. Um, and just started thinking to myself, like, okay, I'm on the server. There's got to be a way to get into the application itself at this point. And I didn't want to draw any. They had pretty good EDR on there, so I didn't want to like draw too many alarms. So I ended up just actually opening the login page, like the HTML, the login page for this application, and I just wrote a keylogger into it, and then just had it like log back to the internal Dropbox that we would have for these engagements.
Because the page was right there on that server. You could just edit it. Is that
Yeah, yeah.
okay?
And I'm a big advocate, from the defensive side for like sometimes the simple stuff like file integrity monitoring, right? Like that would have caught it, but otherwise I just kind of tacked a line of code in and yeah, I had to break onto the Windows server, but instead of it being like this crazy overly complex way to get into this application, it was actually kind of just like simple and elegant. I think that's what I liked about it.
Yeah. I mean, it worked well. Sometimes the basic gets you a long way, especially sometimes just combining the basics, right? A bunch of simple things together become a big thing.
Yeah, yeah. We would actually joke about that exact concept all the time of like three so what's making oh crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a
Very
reason
cool.
yeah, that's why we say take those mediums seriously, sometimes take those lows seriously, obviously
Yeah.
focus on the highs and the criticals, but you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all worth fixing, really. If they found their way in the report, it's probably because they're important.
Yep, 100%.
Give me 1 second. I will change my connection because my.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, this is a little bit better. All right. Thank you for waiting.
Yeah, no problem.
Next question is what's your favorite type of testing, security testing, and why?
Sure, yeah. It has definitely teeter-tottered over the years. I would say I'm on a pretty steady stream of really enjoying web application pen testing. I think it started because it seems to always have like the eye-opening factor when you report on it. For example, somebody has an on-prem web application and you manage to get code execution or steal some data through that application. People on the receiving end kind of can really pick up on the fact that that's like a pivot from the internet directly into their internal network. And with that being said, you know what I mean? It's like okay, you got from the internet to our internal network. That's very concerning. So I like the reaction I get from reporting on those sort of things. But on top of that, I mean, everything feels like it's a web application or has some component of web application in our modern lives nowadays. And so
Yeah.
it's an appealing target because it's a lot of people can relate with, oh, I log into an e-commerce app like that, or I use a smart home system of some sort, but that talks to a web server inevitably.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
really
Some
like getting
kind of
on the
API at a minimum. and usually there's some kind of web management interface.
Yep.
I'm seeing the majority of the pen testing being done as web app now, to probably like 60 to 80%, something like that. Is that
Yeah.
what you see as well? Like a majority of the work is?
Yeah, it feels that way. Because, I mean, everybody used to worry a lot about internal network stuff, Active Directory. That concern's still there for a lot of organizations, but so many of them have moved to like practically a thin client like model, right? Where like they have their
Yeah.
computer and connect to everything else they need on the web.
Everything is
So,
SaaS.
yep,
Yeah, pretty
exactly.
much. Yeah.
Seems that
Cool.
way. And if it's not that way now, there'll be an option for it to be that way in the future for just about everything, it feels like.
Yep. Cool. All right. So the next question is, what is something you think everyone can do to get better? No, not to get better, but to get better results when they're testing.
Sure, sure, sure. Better results. Do you mean like the testing folks, the
Yes.
recipients?
No,
The testing
the
folks.
people that are testing, like pen testers or security researchers, people around you, what are something you see that if they did, they would get better results that people are not doing enough of?
Sure,
Something you
yeah.
wish
Uh,
people did more.
yeah, I could say that moving forward, I think the biggest one will be skipping fundamentals. I don't know that I see a ton of it right now, but I know I've already definitely seen some of it, and it's understandable. It's that old, like, I want to get to the fun stuff. I want to
Right.
skip over the how it works, and I just want to like get to the like send the exploit. And I remember as a young pen tester feeling that way, like, what do you mean 90% of this job is going to be recon? Like, what do I do after Nmap? You know what I mean? Now I see what ports are open. Now what do I do? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
yeah, I would say it's really learning what you're looking at and slowing down and paying attention to details, and the fundamental understanding is you'll get better results because you'll be able to actually understand what you're trying to explain. In addition to that, you won't be able to get much pushback from, not that I get a lot of pushback from clients, but if you ever do, at least you have a strong fundamental base to stand on to kind of defend your
Yep.
your point. Yeah.
I find that the basics are important too, the basic findings that you find frequently, because they really solidify the target. And a lot of the stuff, that's commonly recommended in pen test report, like the security header kind of stuff, it is not a direct attack vector, but once it's implemented, it just shuts down a whole array of things for us, right? So
Yeah.
it is recommended because it has a huge impact, and if people did it more, it'd be great because it'd make our life more difficult. It'd be great for them.
Yeah, yeah, I mean 100%, exactly. And I know I asked, like, did you mean tester or on the recipient side? And I know if you're on the recipient side, it's hard to know everything about security. And if you did, you probably aren't hiring outside help, or maybe you are, but less. But anything you could do to educate yourself, whether it's just on your own time or during those engagements with a pen tester or pen testing firm, like, I know I love to share information and I love to teach as much as I can. And I always teach a man to fish kind of mentality. If I've ever had somebody come
Yeah.
fix something in my house, I'm like, watch it. You mind if I watch what you're doing? So that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's part of our nature that we want to know how everything works and learn everything. I have this problem as well. I want to know about everything. I have
Yeah,
too many hobbies, not enough times.
that resonates strongly with me. I have like four instruments I want to start to learn, and I haven't learned any instruments yet.
Tell me about it. I got a drum, I got a bass, I got a guitar, and I can barely play the
Exactly.
guitar.
Yeah, yeah. I could see myself in that boat not too far from now. It's pretty funny.
All right. So, next question is about AI. How are you using AI in your work today?
Sure, yeah. I think, like many people, I don't want to speak for many people, I guess, but I think a lot of people started this year off very heavy with a balance of maybe ChatGPT and Gemini and Grok, and Claude Code became this kind of cool thing. And speaking from personal experience, Claude Code, for what I do, has far surpassed any other thing I have options or availability to use at the moment. It's
Yep.
also debatably one of the more expensive things I could be using money on, but it's worth it. I mean, it's made. I've found 0 days with it in the past couple months. I've just developed a better understanding of some obscure exploit techniques.
So do you
A lot of
have
people.
Cloud Code write exploits for you? Like you use a command line Cloud Code and then just have it write some exploit?
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing we might have it do. Or another thing that I've been finding myself really enjoying is we're in a continuous pen testing model. So over 100 customers that have thousands and thousands and millions of assets combined, and so it's kind
Big
of like
scope.
big scope, exposure to a lot, and there's so many variables that, like, to try to be the most efficient tester you can be, you want to find what's the most in common. Which, if you think of that, it's kind of like a semi-famous meme where like the whole internet sitting on like a chunk of open source code that's just kind of holding us all up. I'll
Yeah,
come across, yeah. So
true.
yep. So I find myself like, okay, what number of clients I'll have at least some framework or some open source code in common. And then I have a set of like agents and skills and specific prompts,
Mm,
and I use a rel and a rel loop and all this sort of stuff to pull down the source code, source to sync everything, tell me where it stinks. I could drill deeper manually. I say manually, but I let that all kind of run, and then I still go back in with Claude Code, right, and ask more
right, right,
questions,
right.
be a
Guided.
skeptic. Yep,
It's human in the
yep.
loop guided, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. You nailed it. Human in the loop, I guess, is how I'm mostly using it. I do find myself giving it more and more autonomy as it becomes better at certain things, but still
Yeah.
feel it could also give some extremely convincing bad answers sometimes. So when I go back to that, like, you need to know the fundamentals, that's another
Yeah.
reason is like the AI thing is, man, if you go to the client who's really knowledgeable and you're only kind of knowledgeable, and Claude gave you this really, really good looking but wrong answer, you're going to catch yourself in an awkward
Yeah.
situation.
Very convincingly wrong answer. Absolutely.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I absolutely agree with you, and that's what I've seen around me and myself as well. Cloud Code right now, things keep changing so fast, but so next month might be totally different. But yeah, right now Cloud Code is at the top, and using it with several MCP servers, including some of them I wrote myself. The amount of power a pen tester gets from that is unreal, really. The amount of damage that we can do in a short amount of time, it's amazing. I think the future is actually people testing more often. People like you and me can test something a day or two or three now using AI agent and a token budget, right? We can do as much damage as we used to be able to do in 1, 2, or 3 weeks type of pen test. So I think because stuff is changing so fast, people can't wait a whole year anymore. They have to test more often. And then we have to come with those new superpowers we just gained and test faster and better than ever before. So, pretty exciting time.
Yeah, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I have made this comparison a few places and with a few people, but I imagine a group of like lumberjacks cutting down trees with a saw, and then all of a sudden like the crew got chainsaws, you know what I mean, or
That's
whatever.
exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. Everything's going to move a lot faster.
Yep,
Oh, we're going to still be busy. It's just we're going to load those trucks full of log a lot faster than ever before. So, they're going to need
percent. We
more
might,
trucks.
yeah, more trucks, and yeah, and we might find even better ways to do it. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
agree.
sure. Next one is somewhat related. How do you see AI changing cybersecurity, both in offense and defense?
Yeah, yeah. So I could speak stronger to the offensive side. Just some of the stuff we just talked about for sure. To your point, one of the reasons I kind of moved to my current employer from my previous employer, where I actually helped start their pen testing like division. So it was, I had a lot of connection to that place, sentimental, all that. So it's tough to leave. But the one thing that was really appealing was the place I work now offered a continuous model. And to me, that was after, 6 years of pen testing. I was like, man, there are so many things with increasing frequency that happen after my engagement ends with a client that I wish I can go back and test for, learn more about, or at least
Oh
warn
yeah,
them.
yeah. Something just some vulnerability just got announced, and you want to check for it. Yeah, and the engagement's
Yep.
over. You gotta wait a
Yeah,
year.
yeah, exactly. And that doesn't help them and it doesn't help me. And so it's just kind of like obviously there's more factors, budgeting and all that stuff, and I get that. But that all aside, the logical thing is like we got to be able to stay on top of this as a service or continuously, or we need an engagement that's written in a way that does not stop me from going and testing before the bad guy dies. so
Right, right. Yep.
so that was so the reason I bring that all up is because AI. You asked the question. AI is just going to throw a fire on that now. Instead of there being new vulnerabilities once or twice a year that shake everybody
Hmm.
up, it feels like there's once a week, if not more. There could have been three in this month. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the
They're
offensive
coming
side.
at us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're
Yeah.
coming at us fast.
Absolutely, absolutely. And part of I don't want to call it an issue, but something that we'll have to face is human acceptance for technical people, I think is really high right now. I think you'll have a lot of executives who are skeptical. Do we want our pen testers throwing AI tools at us? How can we feel good about this? But I've always insisted every offensive security engagement or offering should be aligned with what threat actors do. And I could promise you, threat actors are using these tools, at least for everything on
Of
the internet
course.
right now.
Of
So,
course. Yes, of course. They're the first using them. And then while we're debating if we should test ourselves with them too.
yes,
Yeah,
yep.
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
So,
the defensive side, it's still the game of cat and mouse, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It's just they're gonna do the same thing we're doing. I don't know as much about it, but I imagine similar concept.
yep, the game just really accelerated basically.
Yeah.
Another thing I find is it's interesting though with agentic pen testing. One thing that it's doing, of course, for the enterprise and the businesses, everything just went faster. But for the small business and people, individual with websites and stuff like that, that never could have paid people tens of thousands of dollars for a pen test, a few years ago. That was completely out of reach for them. But now with agentic pen testing, it's within reach for a lot more people than it's ever been before. So I think that's a really nice thing about it is people that could not even test at all now have the ability to do it. And then the enterprise now they have pen testers with superpowers that can try to keep up with bad actors and also all the bugs that they're introducing because they're moving at the speed of AI.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point too. Kind of semi unrelated, but in that same realm is like I think there's a lot of small businesses that could start to try to flourish with the what am I trying to say? Implementation, there we go, of AI. It could really help a lot of small businesses compete
But yeah,
just because you're now a much more powerful one or two or three-man shop or whatever it is.
yep. You definitely can do a lot more with a lot less if you know how to leverage AI in so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's going to be a wild 10 years, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what 10 years is going to look like. That's a scary
Right?
point.
It feels like so far now, 10 years, like that, because we're moving so fast that even thinking 5 years down the road is going to be so different.
Yeah.
But, anyways,
Yep.
next item is what's the biggest misconception people have about security testing?
Sure, sure, yeah. I don't know that it's staying this way, but in my overall experience, there's been a tremendous amount of people who have asked us about our work and asked for updates and been like, how's the scan going? Like, ouch, please don't call me a scan. So I feel like there's still a lot of people who think we're just kind of out there like pointing a scanner somewhere. And I guess to some extent that may be true, but it's a series of scanners. There's a lot of manual probing involved. There's a lot of hard thinking involved. And so I think there's still a lot of people that are not in this realm of security who think like you're just pushing some magical buttons or you have some paid to use product and that's all you're doing. And it's funny because as agentic pen testing gets better and better, we are actually getting closer to that. But but that's not always been the case, or not really been the case. It's definitely more than a vulnerability scan, and um,
Definitely, yeah.
I feel like I've spent a lot of
Yeah,
my career kind of battling that.
I mean, we're still going to have use for humans for another while, I think, because, I mean, it's still not doing great at authorization testing, a lot of business kind of logic, and like, will it hallucinate stuff still? So the best results are always by combining the expert with the tools.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm
100%.
thinking we're going to be there I'm an optimist, and I think we'll continue adapting and, leverage AI to make us better. But yeah, I think we'll still be
Yeah.
busy for a while.
Yeah. You can't ask AI to do things it doesn't know about yet, and there's still people in our field putting out things nobody knows about. So
Exactly, exactly. That's exactly it. And that applies to large concept or small concept like a pen test.
yeah. Yep. 100%.
All right. Next question is what's a vulnerability or attack vector that you think is underestimated right now? Maybe people are not looking enough for that right now, but it's something that's fruitful that people should be looking for more.
Yeah, sure, yeah. I'm gonna shoot from the hip on this one just because it's come up a couple times recently. And it's one of those things like once you buy a red car, you notice how many other people have red cars, sort of thing. Where I found something that is referred to as execution after redirect, which I found the white paper on it. It's from like 2011, so it's almost like what either it got largely ignored or it's one of those what's old is new again sort of things.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's where, and I'm not a developer, so if I try to explain it in lines of code, I'm sure I'll kill the explanation. Instead, I'll stick to the best explanation I have, which is in any given page, perhaps it should require authentication, like let's just say a
Okay.
list users page. And up high up in that block of code will say like, oh, you should redirect to the login page if they're not authenticated.
Yeah.
But then like they don't put the exit or like die statement up high enough, and so all this other code, as if the page was going to load,
Yeah.
executes. And so if you capture that redirection, you have a whole bunch of authenticated content, and
Yeah.
I guess it's
The
such a weird
redirect
thing to
header
catch.
is there at the top, but the stuff
Yeah.
that they shouldn't see is there underneath. I've
Yep.
actually
Yep.
I've seen that before as well. It's a funny one. Yeah, I've not come across it a lot, but I've
Yep.
come across it, and that's something you've been seeing more recently.
Yeah, it's interesting. I found it at like two completely different companies, two completely different applications, like a week apart. And I don't know if it's just because I'm looking for it now, but the fact that I started looking for it and found it again a week later tells me there's probably more of it out there.
I wonder, was there a burp plugin that tells you that redirect with large payload or something like that? I
It
think
could
that
be. I know yeah.
I think there's something that tells you that, and that's kind of like your clue to go take a look at what you got. And
I
yeah,
think it's like
that is
a long loading response or something on a redirect or something like that. And I never
yeah,
really understood why they pointed it out until I think recently. Exactly. I put two and two together. I was like,
yeah.
oh yeah,
So they show you the authenticated stuff before telling you that you're unauthorized. That's a good
yep,
one.
yep. Yeah,
Cool.
and so you do it, you go look at it in a browser and you would never even know, you know what I mean? You really have to be capturing the content of a redirect.
Yeah. The user will never know.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
proxy will.
The proxy won't lie. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So next one is if someone wants to break into cybersecurity or pen testing, what's your piece of advice for somebody now in 2026?
Yeah, I would have said even 2 years ago, like start a blog, YouTube channel, go talk at conferences or at least meet people at conferences. Just show people you're serious and you're not just like trying to get in to get a paycheck. And that helps a lot. Based kind of building off some of our other conversations, I would say, in addition to making sure you know the foundations and you're learning the pen test stuff, consider how that could be automated with AI. Not because I think that you need to become an AI specialist, but because I think everybody is now kind of going to ask that question to you. And
Yeah.
if not now, then within the next couple of years, like during an interview process, do you do anything with AI? I know we're already asking candidates at my place, like happen to be, we're not holding it against
Yeah.
them if they don't, but it's definitely a bonus.
Actually, do you I think you're probably similar age than I am, right? So it's similar to computer because way back then, people like just computer, right? Way back in the 80s or whatever, most people didn't have a computer, didn't touch a computer, didn't want anything to do with a computer. And now, who's using computers? Pretty much everybody.
Yeah, who's not?
So yeah, who's not using computer? So it's going to be the
Right.
same thing with AI. There's a lot of people that don't want to do anything with it right now, but look down 10, 20 years from now, everybody will. There's just no way around it. It just makes sense. If you can do something 10, 100 times faster, you're going to take the better route and then use the time you have available to do other things. So hopefully it'll bring, better life and give us more time to do things that we enjoy doing, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. At least I hope it is. I hope it's not somehow flipped. I think I heard it worded where like I want my AI to do the work for me so I could focus on art. I don't want the AI to do the art for me so I could focus on work. So I'm like, that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, that is very cool. Well, thanks for that. The last question, very simple one, is actually where can people find you and learn more about your work and follow your work?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I pretty much post everything on LinkedIn. I've debated doing a YouTube channel several times. I still debate it every other weekend, and I think, should I start that today? And it never happens. So you never know, maybe a YouTube in the future, but for now, LinkedIn is my central hub, whether it's something I reshare of my own, which has probably been a little while since I've blogged for myself. What I typically end up doing is resharing either things like this, where I'm on, podcast with you. I did another podcast, and I do videos for my employer where we chat about cool stuff, and I do a lot of blogging
Very
for them as
cool.
well. So it almost all goes to the LinkedIn.
So the Sprocket blog as well. You have some
Yes, the
content.
Sprocket blog. Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
I'm definitely got some already out, and I got a lot more queued up, including a couple new neat like RCEs that I don't want to say nobody knows about, but aren't published anywhere that I know of yet and stuff. So some really cool
Nice.
content coming out soon. Yeah, yep,
Awesome. Well, looking forward to that, Nick. Thank you
cool.
so much
Glad to
for
hear
your
it.
time today. It was great hanging out with you and getting to learn more about you. And I guess if anybody wants to connect with Nick, look him up on LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
thanks, Nick,
please,
and
please do.
have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate me bringing me on and enjoyed our chat today. We'll talk again.
Thank, thank you. Take care.
All right, thank you. Bye bye.